It's important that this story is told correctly, and it's important because of the victim. The victim in the story has this to say: I don't want to hear it be romanticised anymore. I'm tired of the mythology around it. My story gets painted as an outdoor adventure. It was the opposite. It was hell. These words from the victim are the very, very few words that she has ever spoken about her ordeal. So let's not romanticise it, shall we? This is a horrible story. Welcome to Extraordinary Stories Podcast. Hey, how are you? Are you well? Are you good? I am. Okay, I'm just going to do a couple of quick shout-outs, and then I'm going to get on with the story. So hello to Ralph Parinello. Ralphie, my man, how are you? Your lovely wife, Christine, got in touch with me, and I wanted to shout you out because, you know what, you do a tough job, Ralph. Tough job indeed, a funeral director. I imagine that must be a hard job. So well done, and well done on being good at it. Well done on being actually great at being a funeral director. Congratulations on your 2-year anniversary to your lovely wife. So hello to the both of you. Melissa Butler, a new Patreon member. Thanks so much, Melissa. Thank you so much. It means a lot to me. Jerry Moore Penn in Texas. Hey, Jerry. Right, I'm not going to lie, Jerry, you've put me in a tricky, sticky situation, because you've sent me a message on the Facebook group asking if I would say y'all in a Texas accent. And so when yesterday I posted a jokey thing about accents, Carol Laverty, who hosts the Cold Case Notes from the Goober State Queen podcast, warned me that if I tried the southern accent and it was terrible, that I should be nervous of her wrath. But you know what? I'm just gonna give it a go, Jerry, because you requested it, okay? Right, I'm going to try my intro with like a southern drawl and a y'all thrown in just to see what happens. I'm just pretty sure it's going to be excellent. So it would go, if I was a southern Texas, it would sound something like this. Hey, y'all. Are you well, y'all? Are you good? I am, y'all. I mean, I think that's pretty brilliant. I'm not going to lie, I thought that was pretty great. Okay, well, now that I've got my masterclass in accents over, it's on to a podcast recommendation just before we get to the story. All I'm going to say is, listen to these two people. They will never fail to make you laugh. They are bloody great. And the stories are insane on a weekly basis. please listen to Bloody Murder Podcast. I can't even say Bloody Murder Podcast without laughing at how hilarious the two of them are. Just listen to the promo. You're going to love these two if you don't already listen.
Hi, I'm Barney Black.
And I'm Tara Saravan.
And we do Bloody Murder.
We're a weekly true crime podcast that focuses on some of the lesser known crime stories from Australia.
And indeed around the globe.
We're a comedy podcast with a dark sense of humour.
But we're dead serious about murder and the people it affects.
We find humour in some unexpected places.
But never at the expense of the victims or their families.
We've been described as the blue cheese of podcasting.
Addictive, strong and satisfying.
And a bit stinky.
I am not.
You know you are.
Bloody Murder is available on your favourite podcatcher.
Right, so sometimes I get like a theme. It's a weird thing, right? I almost don't even know I'm doing it. Honestly, it takes other people to point it out to me and then I go, oh, you're right, I bloody have got a theme going on. I did, without realising it, right? It's so stupid. I did 3 transgender stories in a month. I didn't notice I'd done 3 stories in transgender until someone was like, are you becoming the transgender podcast? I was like, oh, right, okay. I didn't notice I was doing it. Or I went through this little phase of like sibling stories where I was like obsessed with brothers and sisters or twins. Twins was a big obsession I had for ages. Right, well, anyway, at the moment, I apparently appear to be on some obsession that I haven't really noticed, but it's an outdoor obsession. Well, certainly for this story it is. And then I told the Forest Boy story very recently. Now, this story is way, way worse than the Forest Boy story. That was a story of deceit and lies. This is just an outright horrible, horrible crime. Okay? Let's go. Kari Swenson was born in 1962 in Philadelphia, America. Now, in 1970, when Kari Swenson was 8 years old, the Swenson family, they upped and they moved from the suburb that they lived in, of Philadelphia, to Bozeman, Montana. So the reason that they made that change, the reason that they did that is because of Kari's dad's job. So he was in charge of the physics department at the university in Philadelphia where they lived, but he got a better job in Bozeman, and so they moved there. So he was still doing the same type of thing, still head of physics and all things physical or physics related. So that's why they moved. Right, so as a child, Kari was a very athletic child. She loved to be outdoors. She loved to be active. She would spend as much time as she possibly could doing all sorts of physical activity. She loved gymnastics. She loved swimming. She loved running. She just was one of those kids that was like, I want to be on the move all the time. So as she started to kind of grow up, it became really clear to her family that Kari was actually just not even just so much she had an interest in it. Actually, she was starting to show signs of being quite a gifted athlete, and especially at running. She was way slicker than your average when it came to running. She was winning every medal going in school. And so, at teenage age, she started to train quite seriously. So at this point, as much as you can do when you're a teenager, she's looking ahead at her life and she's thinking she might want to compete quite seriously as an athlete. I actually just realised when I said that there, as much as you can. What did I say? As much as you can when you're a teenager, is what I think I said. But I think athletes, I think it is different. I actually think the choice to decide whether or not you're going to be an athlete is probably made quite young. You know, in the way that other people will go, well, I didn't decide I was going to be a tree surgeon. I don't know. I didn't realise I was going to be a tree surgeon until I was 16. I think you probably decide you're going to be an athlete way younger. Or even if it's not younger, I think you make the commitment to it and you make the commitment to it. It's not, oh, I'd quite like to be a fireman one day, or I'd quite like to be a curtain salesman the next. Why you'd be a curtain salesman, I have absolutely no idea. But you know what I mean? Like, I think there's a commitment to athleticism at a young age. So as well as running, Kari was a very talented skier. Something I can't say that I am. I tried skiing once. Once I tried it, and I tell you, I spent the whole time on my arse. I just fucking kept falling over every 2 minutes. I just couldn't ski. I just can't do it. It's not for me. I mean, I would like the lifestyle. I'd like the log cabins and the alcohol and the roaring fires and being in Switzerland and all that. Oh, that would be bloody lovely. But this whole, let's put 2 big metal things on your feet and throw you down a mountain, nah, it's not for me. No thanks. At age 22, Kari was working really hard towards her goal of getting into the Olympics. That was what she really wanted. She wanted, and she was desperate to be part of the American team in the next Olympics. And she was hoping to use both her running and her skiing skills to earn her a place on the biathlon team. So, by the way, when I say biathlon, what that means is you have 3 skills. You can shoot rifles, you can ski, and you can run. Okay? It's slightly odd skills, I think, for it. I can get skiing and running, but the shooting a rifle, I'm less sure about that one. But anyway, that's what it was. So the biathlon is what she wanted. So that's what that means. It's not just, by biathlon, I don't mean it's for bisexual people. It's for people who have those 3 skills. And like any runner and any athlete, or in fact if you're a jogger, you have that route, don't you? You have that route that you get quite attached to. You have that way that you run. Say you're a jogger in the city centre. You leave your house. You know which street you like to turn down. And you know which road you want to go to next. Or if you're someone who runs in parks, you know which bit of the park you like to enter in at. And what you want your route to be. And actually people take those very, very seriously and become attached to them. And I think that's a great thing. I actually think you should become attached to them, because I think, at least then you know where you're going and you can form a bit of attachment to it. So it was no different for Kari. It was absolutely no different. She enjoyed running and skiing in lots of different areas, lots and lots of different places. But there was a particular route that she liked to run through the Big Sky National Park. Big Sky National Park is in Montana, and it attracts plenty of tourists and locals every year who come for its gorgeous scenery and its lovely, lovely trails. I'll admit, I hadn't heard of Blue Sky Park, but when I looked it up, I realised that it's near, well, not near, but it's in the proximity of Yellowstone Park, which is way, way more common. I've definitely heard of Yellowstone Park. So this is just one of the areas that Kari likes to go running in. This is somewhere that she likes to go and train hard. So it's a regular day of training for Kari. She gets up. She puts on her running gear, her shorts, her vest, her shoes, and she sets off to run through Blue Sky Park. As she's running, she's getting into her rhythm. She's maintaining a good pace. She's focused. She's clear. She's just keeping moving forward. She is completely unaware that in the distance there is a figure watching her run. Who was that figure? It was a young man in his mid-20s called Dan Nickel. So, Dan Nickel, what was he doing there in the middle of the mountains? Well, Dan lived there. He lived there, but not alone. He lived with his father, Don Nichols. Don Nichols was in his 40s, and a few years prior to this day, Don's wife had died, and after the death of his wife, he decided he no longer wanted to live in houses. He no longer wanted to live in a community of people. Instead, what Don wanted was he wanted to live within nature. He wanted to live within the elements and to see what life was like living off the land. And so, to start his new life, Don decided that he was going to become a resident of Blue Sky Park. Not sure that you're just allowed to become a resident of a national park. I don't think you are, but that's what Don had decided. His wife was gone, and he thought, I'm going to go, and I'm going to live in this park. I mean, I know people make all kinds of choices in life, so, good on you if that's the choice you really want to make. I mean, it wouldn't be me. I don't think I could be living in a park without access to the internet. Are you mental? I'd be like, how do you work out how long you cook anything for? I'd be like, I don't know how you cook. I don't know how long to cook this for. Shit, I need the internet. I mean, how would you Google what a podcast host looks like? You know what I mean? Well, I don't suppose you really would be doing that, actually, because you maybe wouldn't be listening to podcasts. Anyway, I'm getting lost. Anyway, Don is the dad in this situation. Right, so we're about to have a Don-Dan situation. Let's just clarify it right now. Don is the dad. He's in his 40s. Dan is the son. He's in his 20s. And it's Dan. He is the one who is watching Kari as she runs through the park. Now, it's all well and good to say that Don lives in the park because his wife died and he decided that that was the kind of life that he wanted. Well, why is his son there? Why is his son not off, married somewhere? Why has he not got a girlfriend? Why is he not living in a house somewhere? And it's because of this. Don, over time, had convinced his son Dan that the mountain life was the way to live. He told him that it was a wonderful way to live your life. You could be free, you didn't have to worry about anything, you could live with nature, and that would be an amazing way to live. And eventually, Dan sort of succumbs to his dad's ideas, and he agrees to live with his dad in the mountains. So the two men, father and son, had lived in the mountains for 3 years. So they'd lived together in like this homemade little customized place that they had made their own. They just basically had settled into this life around some trees, around some, they'd made like makeshift kind of shelter. They just basically created a space where the two of them lived. But they both wanted something else. And the wanting of that something else is where Kari Swenson, running through the park, comes in to the story. They wanted to make a tribe. They wanted to live the way that they were living, but just bigger. They wanted them, and they wanted more people involved. Don had once said to his son Dan, "What you need is a good woman." To which Dan had said, "Well, yeah, but no woman is ever going to want to live like this. It's okay for me and you to live off the land and to live in this park. No woman's going to want that." To which Don replied, "Well, no, not at first." So as Kari is running over the grounds, completely unaware she's being watched, Dan, the 20-year-old, is looking at her and assessing her. And he thinks, nice body. He thinks she's fit. He thinks she's blonde. He's into that. He thinks roughly my age, early 20s, young, a body made to have babies. So he alerts his dad. He says, "Come and see this woman jogging right now, completely unaware. She's jogging in our direction." And his dad says, "Yes, she is perfect." And get ready to want to throw something off of a wall or slap yourself in the face, because that's how I felt when I heard what Don, the father, had to say to Dan, his son. He said, "Let's take her."
On August 22, 1996, 22-year-old Debbie Dorian was discovered bound, gagged, raped, and murdered in her apartment. Her father was the one to have made the horrific discovery, and to this day, her killer has never been apprehended, and her case has gone cold. However, he did leave behind his genetic marker, his DNA. Though he would lay dormant for nearly 3 years, he did strike again, raping at least 7 more women in the Visalia, California area, linked to all of those crimes through his DNA. But Debbie would be the only known victim to have died at his hands. With DNA technology having advanced by leaps and bounds over the last 22 years, as well as some recent, very high-profile cases in California that had long been cold being solved, it is our hope to shine a light on Debbie's case, to bring this killer and rapist to justice, and a measure of closure for Debbie's family and friends who have waited much too long for answers. With the blessings of Debbie's mother, Sarah, and the help and guidance of her best friend, Katina, California Dreaming and Orbital Jigsaw are bringing you their story in episode 64, The Unsolved Murder of Debbie Dorian.
Shall we all just take a little moment and deal with "She Can Be Your Wife"? What the actual fuck is that? Oh. Both men begin to make their way into Kari's path where she's running. And right at a moment when she is completely unsuspecting, totally unaware that there's anyone around, she is grabbed and they drag her towards their makeshift home in the mountains. One of the first things that they do is they attach a large chain to Kari's waist and they tie the other end to a tree. So there is no chance of Kari using her running skills here to get out of the situation. They explain to Kari they live here. They've lived here for a few years. Don introduces himself as the father, Dan as the son, and they say Dan needs a wife. And we want to make a tribe. She is, of course, absolutely terrified. The two men have completely overpowered her. And to be honest, she isn't a weakling of a person. Remember what I said about the biathlon? Shooting, skiing, running. She's strong, she's physically fit, but chained to a fucking tree. What can she do? As well as being chained to the tree, the two men now tie her arms and her legs together. I'm going to say this now, and it's important because of what I mentioned in the beginning. The idea that this story gets told wrong. The events of the kidnapping upon Kari are, of course, horrific. But the idea that it gets misconstrued and told incorrectly always hangs in the air, and especially for her. And this is what her problem is, and I get this. There's something right. Well, I'm sure we're all thinking it, because we're all true crime listeners and we all know this. I'm telling you that two men have grabbed a woman off of a running path in a fucking national park, chained her to a tree, and at this point they've tied her arms and her legs. So it's hidden somewhere in the narrative. And, let's just name the beast rape. Okay? Did the father and son tie her to that tree, tie her arms and her hands and her feet so that they could rape her? Well, here's the thing. No. There was no sexual assault on her. That doesn't make this situation any better. Of course it doesn't. But it's important that I point this out now, because when I started to look at this story, I started from Kari's point of view, where she says it's the most upsetting thing that people let that hang over the whole story as a narrative, and actually that's not really what happened. Rape never actually took place. Now, it's important to point this out. What's about to happen to Kari over the next 18 hours is brutal. It's brutal, and it's not anything that anyone would ever want to face. But I'm pointing this out really because there was a big massive TV movie made of this in 1989. And the biggest criticism of it was its exploitation of the story. So the movie tells her story, but it lets that rape question hang over the story as if it's some sort of interesting point of tension, and that's wrong. It's wrong to do that because it didn't happen. Yes, she's chained to a tree. Yes, she's bound. And yes, these two men are hitting her hard across the face. They're throwing her to the ground. They're abusing her. They're telling her she will be the mother of Dan's children. All of those things were happening. But let's take out sexual assault, because it didn't happen. The two men, they were marching her to different parts of the woods, and they were just chaining her to different trees. They made sure that Kari knew she was not going anywhere. She belonged to them now. She must have been terrified. So fucking scared. And you know, it's alright for me to say, I'm just hearing that back, actually what I just said there. It's alright for me to say, in hindsight, we didn't rape her. But she doesn't know that at that time. She doesn't know what's going to happen next. All that she knows is she was out running, and now all of a sudden these two men are beating her, and they are tying her to various different trees, and they've bound her body together. But in that moment, she doesn't know what's coming next. She doesn't know if they're going to fucking kill her. Doesn't know what's going to happen. So back at her parents' house, they start to think it's odd that she's not returned home from her run. They're pretty on top of her schedule. They generally know the route that she's going that day, so they'll be like, alright, okay, she's going to Blue Sky Park today, so she'll be gone for 2.5 hours. She'll usually be back at this time, and then she doesn't come back home. And then they start to wonder, they start to think, oh god, she was running in Blue Sky Park today. Has she fallen on the route and hurt her head? You know, they go through the whole thing. Has she been attacked by a bear? All sorts of crazy thoughts are going through their head. So they contact police. And police, they agree that a search probably is worthwhile. And a few officers are sent up to look at the trail where she'd been running. But this turns up nothing. Now, bear in mind, I say that right. Blue Sky Park, massive. Absolutely huge. And at this point, what you've got is, she's 22. You've got an adult who went out running, hasn't returned home. So police, yeah, they'll go and search those trails, but it's not necessarily as if, you know, they don't really know they're looking for a missing person at this point. They don't really know. They're like, yeah, okay, we'll go and have a look just in case something has happened. Maybe she has fallen and she's hurt and she needs help. Who knows? You know, but I don't want to use the word lackluster, but it's a bit, okay, well, right, well, fine, okay, well, we'll give it a go. That's okay. So it gets into the following day, and nothing has been heard from Kari at all. So friends and family, they decide that they're going to start their own search party. So a group of about 10 of them, they head to Blue Sky National Park, and they begin to split up into smaller groups and start to look for Kari around the park. Her mum and dad must have just been feeling horrific at this point. I mean, little does anybody in that search party know that she's chained to a tree only a few miles away from where they are. And at that moment, her face is covered in blood, dried blood from where Dan and Dawn have beaten her. So the family are searching, and they're searching, and they're turning up nothing. This park, you know, it's massive for a start. It's big, thick areas of woodland. It's big, dense trees. It's not a place to be searching if you are a amateur park searcher. That's not a term, but you know what I mean. They're not professional searchers. Can I say the word searchers? They're just looking for anything that they can find which might help them find Kari. So there is a member of the team, a friend of Kari's, and a friend of the family named Alan Goldstein. Alan wanders away from the main party of searchers. He's becoming frustrated at the lack of being able to find her. So, working almost blindly, just trying any direction possible. Without knowing it, Alan Goldstein is closer to Kari and to Dan and to Dawn than anybody else. He's closer than he thinks. He's closer than he knows he is. Kari sits chained to a tree, and while Dan and Dawn are engaged in some other task and not really paying attention, she sees her friend Alan walking in the distance towards where she is captive. Now, does she immediately feel elated, happy, thrilled that she's about to be free? No, she feels absolute panic. Absolute panic, and I'll tell you why. Dan and Dawn had, during this past few hours, warned Kari that should anybody try to save her, they would be killed instantly. So she sees Alan in the distance, and he's walking closer and closer to the part of the mountains where she is. And Alan is just moving closer all the time, and she's thinking, no, I wish he would just turn away. I wish he could just go at this point. And it's horrible because he can't see her. He's still looking around blindly, doesn't know what's going on. And she is praying to God that he'll turn the opposite way, or he'll turn in a different direction and not come towards her. But he doesn't. He gets closer and he gets closer. Alan gets close enough to make out some figures, some people, some movement. And when he does, his instinct kicks in and tells him that he might just have found Kari, and so he speeds towards the area. And when he gets close enough, he gets there and he sees Kari, and she's chained to the tree, and she starts screaming at him to leave, go away. She's screaming, they are crazy, they might kill you, just go now, run, go away. But Alan stays. And now, in the panic and in the noise that this has created, Dawn and Dan are alerted to this. Dawn picks up his gun. He races to the tree where Kari is tied up. He sees Alan Goldstein, Kari's rescuer, and he fires a bullet straight into Andrew's chest, killing him instantly. In the frenzy of all of this, Dan, the son, takes out his gun and he shoots at Kari. 2 bullets. One misses her. I mean, she can't go anywhere. She's tied to the fucking tree. She can't go anywhere. The first bullet misses her, and the second one goes into her body and into her lung. Okay, so What do this pair of fuckheads do next? They run. Don tells his son Dan, collect your stuff, quickly, we are moving on, we are getting out of here. And so they flee the scene. Now they believe at this point that what they have left behind are 2 dead bodies. That of Kari, chained to the tree, and that of wannabe hero Alan. But they're wrong. Kari is alive. Yes, she's shot, and she's bleeding, and she's struggling to breathe, but she is alive. Her friend Alan is dead, however. So now the search party who originally came in to the Blue Sky Park, they start to worry. They haven't seen Alan for a while. In fact, they haven't seen him for nearly 4 hours. 4 hours is long when you're searching. Well, not that I've ever been searching in Blue Sky Park, but you know what I mean. 4 hours is long, and it's starting to get dark. And anyway, they then the search sort of goes from, obviously the main focus is finding Kari, because that's where she had been jogging. But they know that Alan was in the park, so they're like, right, okay, we really need to find him now, because this is a potential problem. What if he's been hurt? What if something's happened to him? It starts to get really dark, and the search party begin to panic. So they start to move really quickly, and they move, thankfully, thank God they do, but they move in the right direction, and they find Kari chained to the tree with Alan's body next to her. She has had to sit with Alan's dead body, the guy who was trying so hard to come and save her, for 4 hours. Horrible. So, they do their best to get Kari off of the tree. And now all that they can really hope for is that she can survive the bullet wound. Now, like any good story, it doesn't end there. What about Don and Dan and Nichols? Well, at this moment in the story, they're on the run. And police are having a really hard time finding them. And that's because the 2 men have run into Yellowstone Park, which you'll remember I mentioned earlier, the massive, huge park. And they're successfully hiding from police. So a manhunt begins to find the 2 of them, to find these 2 kidnappers. The hunt ends up nationwide. But police are struggling to turn up Don and Dan Nichols. What of Kari? Well, she is taken to hospital and the bullet is removed from her body. Thank God. So the bullet, as I said, had gone into her lung. Oh, awful. But they were able to remove it. And she, fearlessly, she recovers in hospital. And although she will insist in hospital that the 2 men didn't rape her, she's still subjected to tests by doctors to ensure that her body shows no signs of damage. Pretty amazing, isn't it? That she survived being shot. I think that's amazing. There's a piece of shrapnel still lodged in her chest, which the doctors just couldn't remove. Or they could have removed it, I think, but the problem was that had they removed it, it would have actually caused her more problems. So they've left it in there. But more than that, and way more reason to applaud Kari Swenson is that as soon as she was out of hospital, She was determined she was still going to the Olympics. What a woman. She was determined that she was going to get herself on that team and she was going to compete for her country. But what of Dan and Dawn? Have they been found? No. No, they haven't. Their face is on TV continually. Where are these men? It takes 6 months, hundreds of police, but eventually they are discovered in Yellowstone Park, hiding in a little tiny corner of the park where they thought they wouldn't be found. Both men are arrested and charged with kidnap and the murder of Alan Goldstein and the attempted murder of Kari Swenson. Over the next few months, 2 major things happen. I don't know which one of these you will think is the better. Tell me, what do you think? Firstly, both Dawn and Dan are tried and found guilty. Dawn Nichols is sentenced to 115 years in prison for the kidnap of Kari and the murder of Alan Goldstein. And Dan, his son, is given 20 years in prison. Secondly, I secretly think this is the one that's more exciting. Kari Swenson goes on in that same year to qualify for the Olympics. She competes in the biathlon for the USA team and she wins a bronze medal. Imagine for her how good that must have felt. Imagine getting that bronze medal after going through that experience and having that piece of shrapnel still lodged in her fucking lung. She went on and she got an Olympic medal. She must have literally been at that finishing line, at that ceremony, singing, "I'm a survivor, I'm not gonna give up, I'm not gonna stop, I'm gonna work harder." I mean, she, yes to her. So, in 2018, where are all of the players in this story? Well, Kari went on and she became very, very, very private after the Olympic win. She decided to give up her life in athletics at that point. And I can kind of get that. I think that's fine. She had a goal. Her goal was to get on the USA team, get a medal. She did it. What she did next was she went on to train as a vet. And Kari, I'm happy to say, is still living these days in America, working as a vet. Over the years, right, every newspaper, every TV show, Oprah, crime TV, I don't know what they're called, crime whoever, they've come to her, they've tried to talk to her, they've offered her big money, they want that story, they want the details, the gory details, what happened in those 18 hours, but she isn't really interested in the spotlight. She just kind of wants to put it behind her. Don, the daddy, he served 30 years of his sentence and was paroled for good behaviour because he'd done really well in prison. He'd gone through some anger management training. Good for him. Good for Don. Great. So yeah, he's now 86 years old and he is out and about. Dan, the son, is also a free man, but Dan's had a bit of a back and forth with police. He keeps getting into trouble over various things. There's been some drug problems, there's been some home breaking problems. Like I said in the beginning, the biggest problem for Kari in this story is the way that her story ends up being mythologized. Is that a word? Mythologized. Oh, I really hope I'm not sure if that is a word. I might have just made up the best word in the world. Mythologized. Maybe I've just made that up. It's the way that people tell her story. Like, it's something exciting, it's something that has to be written about, and, you know, sometimes, actually, it's quite disrespectful. People tell the story as if it's quite funny. They sort of tell this whole mountain men story, and it gets all just a bit kind of, like, romanticised. Don't get me wrong. I know you're probably thinking, yeah, well, you chose to tell it. Yes, I did. I chose to tell it as a story, and if you're listening to this podcast, you will know I love a survivor. I fucking love a survivor. So ultimately, that's my drive for telling the story. I don't want to romanticise that whole story and make it seem like this. Oh, it was... What did she call it at one point? She said something like, everybody thinks my story's an outdoor adventure. It wasn't. It was a fucking hell. So yeah. When the press were really hot on the story, Kari agreed to one interview. And it was not long after it. So she agreed to do one interview, and actually the interview never really happened. And the reason it never happened is because she went to the photo shoot for the interview before she'd done the interview, right? So she goes to the photo shoot, and the photographer says, what we're going to do is we're going to put you in a sort of mountain setting. So like you surrounded by like trees and like all this kind of stuff. And she went, no way. No fucking way. The deal is off. I am not... Like, if you want my story, you can talk to me sitting across from me in a coffee shop. You can talk to me... Don't photograph me in a fucking mountain setting just so that you can get more publicity for the story. So, she now never, ever speaks publicly of her ordeal. Dan and Dawn Nickel, they have tried for years to get interviewed to tell their side of the story, but no one is really that interested. And so ends the story. Well, I hope you enjoyed that. Right, just before I go, Halloween is coming. Ooh, spooky. Ooh, the ghosts are coming out. Right, I want you to send me your spooky stories, your ghost stories, your urban myths, your stories from your own villages, towns, whatever, just the ones online that you're like, oh my god, it's so fucking freaky. You know, just like the really weird stories. Please send me them. I've got a load of them at the moment, but I have a plan. For some scary stories. And I've never really done anything Halloween-y wise on the podcast. So I thought, you know what? Fuck it. I might just do it this year. So, got a Halloween story? Got a scary one? Send it my way. Alright. Quickly, if you want to support Extraordinary Stories podcast, you can support me on Patreon. It would be amazing if you could. Any small amount helps. You could leave me an iTunes review. That would also be some bloody lovely support. You could join the Facebook group. That's another way to support. You could recommend me to a friend on Twitter. In fact, you could recommend on Facebook. That's also a great way for me to reach more people. You could hire an aeroplane that writes in the sky and it tells everyone to listen. Okay? Well, I'm not suggesting you do that, but alright. It's just a suggestion. Okay, until the next episode, get in touch. Okay? Goodbye.
It didn't affect me really one way or the other. I would imagine from the look on his face, let's get it on, let's do it, let's get it over. Let's get it on. Let's do it. Let's get it over.